Hello and welcome to Endurance Minded. It's the podcast that aims to redefine what it means to reach our full potential by exploring how movement and mindset impacts our lives and how we can all work to show up as the best versions of ourselves. I'm your host, Taylor Thomas, founder at TEC, and before we get started, I've got an all call. If you're a coach or an entrepreneur in the health and fitness industry who's trying to grow your business without burning out, I want to personally invite you to apply for the Growth Circle. The Growth Circle is our business accelerator program at TEC, and it's designed specifically to serve providers like you in the health and fitness industry. People who are incredible at what they do, but they need a proven framework and real support to actually scale. Let's be real, running a coaching business can feel like a grind. You're juggling programming and client communication, marketing, admin work, and somehow you're still trying to grow your business. That's where the Growth Circle comes in. Inside the program, we help you nail down your ideal client and get really clear on what your offer is. We help you build a consistent lead gen process so you're not wondering where your next client comes from. We help you improve your sales skills without feeling salesy. And most importantly, create systems and support so that you're not doing it alone. You'll be a part of a driven community of other business owners in this space who get it. We host regular group calls, team intensives, mastermind sessions to make sure you're never stuck trying to figure it out in a silo. So if you're tired of winging it, if you're tired of trying to do it all by yourself, to recreate the wheel, figure out what levers to pull, what's broken and what's not, if you're ready to turn your passion into a business that actually works for you, I want to invite you to apply. You can find the link to the Growth Circle in our show notes. And I want you to really think about what's best for you and your business. I want you to think about how your business can really make an impact on the industry and how it can give you the life that you're excited about and make the money that you deserve, working with the clients that you love, spending time investing in the things that you care about and you're passionate about. So if this is a problem you're committed to solving and you want to take your business to the next level, again, click the link in the show notes. I can't wait to hear from you. Welcome back. We are into part 2 of our Resiliency and Adaptability series. If you haven't had a chance to listen to part 1, it was the last episode that we released, it'd be great to go back and just get a high-level overview. Hopefully you can sit with the whole thing. If you don't have time, this one will be great just as a standalone, but certainly understanding the context that we talked about in part 1, talking about resiliency, what resilience actually means, how that narrative is poised to shift the mindset around resiliency, and ultimately how we can build resiliency into our life in a way that gets us out of just this kind of singular focus of putting our head down, continuing to grind, but really opening up the conversation and the narrative and understanding fully what resilience looks, feels, behaves like when done well in our lives. But today, we're going to take that a step further. We're going to talk about adaptability. We're going to talk about how it's really an advantage and how ultimately it allows us to thrive when change is the only constant. So things are always going to be in flux. We're always going to get things thrown at us, curveballs, speed bumps, points of friction, pushback, whatever you want to call it. This is inevitably how the world works, right? It's how we move through our days. We get inputs and we get news. And as much as we try to control the variables, we have to respond. And our ability to be adaptive and to deploy adaptability is what will allow us to continue to bolster the strength and the skill of being resilient. So I think really when we think about it, or what it boils down to, is what separates those who survive from those who just thrive. It isn't purely resilience, it's adaptability, right? So resiliency without the ability to actually deploy and implement the things that we learn when we are developing a resilient mindset. And again, we talk a lot about that in the first part, the last episode, of what it actually means to deploy this. We have to take action on the information that we are given. so that we can continue to grow. When we do that, that inherently creates an adaptive environment. So truly, when we think about people that survive versus thrive, adaptability is an inherent part of the equation. And we see this all the time, right? There's just a million examples in front of us. If we look at the world of business, it's any organization that's adapted to technology. It's the classic, Blockbuster clinging to the DVDs versus Netflix adapting to streaming, right? Let's all go back and remember Netflix sending us movies on demand, the red box outside of the grocery store. It's, there were so many signs that we wanted to engage with entertainment differently. And some companies, again, the classic Blockbuster example, held on to that. It is, happens in the world of athleticism. We see different trends come and go. We see different people, proselytize that there's only one way to do things. And ultimately, we have to adapt to the science, right? We know that for instance, strength training is a critical part of endurance activity now. Even 5 years ago, that was kind of on the fence, right? But we've adapted. We know, we've paid attention. We're understanding what it looks like to build a resilient body. And we know that it's more dynamic than just doing a lot of endurance training. So there's so many, again, examples of this, of what it looks like to actually deploy this adaptability. And I think really adaptability is the competitive edge. It is the competitive edge in a world where change is the only constant. Again, it is not if, but when. Things will change. Things will continue to happen. We'll get information. We'll get new data. We'll get pushback. We'll get new opportunities. Whatever it is, we have to be able to adapt. And if we are unwilling to adapt, then we will get left behind. Right? The people that adapt, again, specific to this equation now, resiliency equals adaptability. When we deploy, when we work to change, when we work to grow based on the pushback that we've gotten, based on the need to pivot, which is what equals resiliency. Ultimately, again, at the end of the line there, we're talking about adaptability. And so let's talk about why adaptability matters. I want to give you a little context here. And again, it's all over the place. This is going to be no surprise to any of you that are listening. Let's talk about business, right? The cycles of business are shorter. Technology is accelerating at a rapid pace. We have AI that's literally changing things every single day. New companies coming online, expectations for how we do work, how fast we do work, what that work actually looks like, how we deploy AI agents into our work. The list goes on. And so we have to be adaptable. We have to pay attention. If we continue to stay in a zone that says, I'm not going to pay attention to that, this is how we've always done things, that doesn't apply to our industry. That's not what our customers want. That's not whatever it is, you will get left behind, right? There is no world where we move forward and things, even a year from now, don't look wildly different than they do right now. And so we have to be adaptable when it comes to the athletic space. Again, I talked about this in the first episode, but I want to touch on strategically how this impacts all areas of our life. I want to weave this into career, business, high performance, athleticism. And so when we look at the athletes, it's the training needs that evolve over time with age, injury, life demands. We don't just have to put this copy and paste approach on how we pursue our athleticism, what it means for us, what our athletic identity is, right? One season, it could be high volume and it could be going full gas and burning the candle at both ends. If that feels right, the next season could be, moderate. We could be doing 4 to 6 hours a week. We could touch in every day. We could focus more on strength training. We could do any number of things and it wouldn't diminish the sum total of the effort. We have to be adaptable, right? We have to pay attention to what we need right now in this season of our life and then back into what the approach looks like. And I think most recently, the COVID pandemic is still top of mind. I hate to be a person that harkens back to that. I kind of get tired of everyone, using COVID as an example, or like during COVID, X, Y, and Z. But it is fresh, and it was an extremely dynamic and disruptive time period. But let's talk about adaptability. We know that businesses, people that were able to pivot during COVID. We got restaurants, we got gyms, we got, so it's the restaurants that moved to takeout kits. It's the gyms that moved to online coaching. They survived and others collapsed, right? So what is it about the people that managed to navigate that time period and come out the other end still surviving? And I think the answer is very flatly, it is adaptability. They were able to see that it was necessary to adapt. Ultimately, what that built was resiliency. There is no business, there's no individual that came out the other side of COVID thriving in whatever way that manifests for them. There's no person that came out the other side of that isn't more resilient now than they were when it started. And what's required to create that resiliency is adaptability. And I love this quote from Charles Darwin. We're thinking about adapting, right? Evolution is no clearer example. And he says it's not the strongest of the species that survives. It's not the most intelligent, but it's the ones that are the most responsive to change. Let's think about what creates evolution, what creates that slow evolution, that slow change. It's adaptability. Right? It's the individual, it's the animals, the mammal, the whatever's ability to recognize very slowly that things have to change and adapt to their environment so that they can thrive. Right? It's wired into our DNA. This is literally why humans exist. It's why we are where we're at right now in the greater scope of the world and the universe. But what we know is that we've become a little resistant to adaptability. There's lots of reasons behind that. I think, we're able to be very comfortable. We're able to opt into different things. Most people don't have to, overexert themselves if they don't want to. They can sit, they can go to their job, they can come home, they can turn on Netflix, they can live. We can all live very comfortably without resistance. And that creates an environment where we don't have to adapt necessarily. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to thrive, but if we don't adapt, we're also not going to die. And so we're at this point in our trajectory as a race where we've been able to be complacent. And I want to talk about why, if you're someone who is focused on reaching your full potential, if you're interested in maximizing your performance, then adaptability is really the key here. So I want to talk about the science. So we got a little bit of context here. Now I want to give you some specifics. So what's happening when we talk about adaptability? That word we can throw around, but what's really happening when I say adaptability? What does it mean? So first and foremost, we're talking about the concept and the science behind neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to rewire and form new habits throughout your life. So this is healthy, right? We want to engage in such a way where we're able to continue to develop and deploy neuroplasticity, right? It keeps our brain healthy. It keeps us moving forward. It keeps us thinking critically, right? So we have this neuroplasticity piece. We also have the psychological piece. So from the APA, we know that adaptable individuals show higher levels of life satisfaction and lower stress. And let's just think about that. Let's take a step back. Why would that be? Well, I think it can be pretty obvious, right? If you're someone that's adaptable, you're going to be less frustrated. You're going to be less stuck in your ways. You're going to be less siloed. You're going to be more easily approachable. It's going to be easier for you to surround yourself with like-minded people because everyone else is adapting, right? Everyone else is moving forward. And so it's a less lonely place when we're stuck, right? Or it's a less lonely place when we're not stuck, when we are adaptable. And so I think if we just, again, take a step back, like why psychologically would those individuals have higher levels of life satisfaction and lower stress? I think it's a no-brainer. You're growing, you're engaged, you're hungry, you're excited, you're learning. So if you're an individual, it's like, no, this is how we've always done things. No, now's not the right time. No, I'm not going to do that. I want you to think really hard about what it looks like to start to integrate some adaptability into how you think about things. Right? So there's so many places that we see parallels for specifically the science of adaptability. Let's look at sports. All right, so we have runners shifting from road marathons to trail. Right, that's an adaptable skill set. We see this happen all the time. People get started, lace up their running shoes, they do a 5K, they do a 10K, half marathon, marathon. And they say, okay, what's it look like to go explore some new terrain? So maybe I shift to a trail, marathon, trail race. Maybe it's a trail ultra. There's transferable fitness, but it requires a new mindset, right? It requires the recognition that you're not going to be as good at that new thing as you were at the old thing. Maybe you had done several races. You had trained a long time on the road. You're comfortable with the marathon, but as soon as you go on the trail, things are different. You have to have a new type of fitness. Your agility has to be a little different. You have to read the terrain differently. You have to pay attention, engage in a different way. But again, the fitness is there, but it requires a new mindset. I think that's good, right? I think it's good to push ourselves. It's okay to be bad at things and force ourselves in some way to be adaptable, right? We also know that, this happens in business all the time, right? We have to adapt. We have to adapt our business model. We have to adapt our client acquisition strategies. We have to adapt how we communicate. We have to adapt our workflows and our workforce so that we're continuing to meet the client where they're at, in alignment with their expectations. What we did 10 years ago probably isn't going to apply right now. We have new technology. We have new systems, right? New things that need to be deployed so that we can service the people that we work for in alignment with expectations, and it makes sense for a business model that services what our goals are, right? So again, adaptability is happening, and I think we resist it and even don't realize that it's baked into what we do. It takes more energy, I think, to push back on it than it does to actually deploy it. So with that in mind, what keeps us from adapting? Why do we struggle? Why do we resist? We know it's happening. Again, change is the only constant. So the opportunity to adapt is ever present, literally every day, maybe even, every minute, every hour. So much coming at us. How do we adapt? What's keeping us from adapting? Well, first one, and I think probably the biggest, is an identity attachment. So we're afraid to let go of, and I quote, who we've always been. Right? This is who I am. This is how I've done things. This is how I feel. This is how I think. This is how I behave. We're good at that. That's safe. We don't have to worry about failure. We don't have to worry about others' opinions. We don't have to worry about being let down by ourselves or others. And so there's an identity piece here, right? I think this is really at the core of why we tend to resist adaptability or adapting as a skill, is because we make it mean something about us. The other thing that keeps us from adapting is we have a status quo bias. So our brain defaults to familiar patterns. Now, some of this is scientific. It's an energy-saving mechanism. Right? It's evolutionarily a response that we've created to help us save energy, to help us be ready for when we need more energy. And so we default to the status quo. It's easier just to do the thing that we're comfortable with. It's easier to stay in the mindset. Even if we know it's wrong, sometimes it feels like it takes less energy to do the thing the old way than to change, even though we know there's a high cost. I think there's an interesting equation here, right? There's a ratio that we kind of calculate in our minds. We say, okay, here I am, and I know that this is maybe not the best, right? Let's use AI, for example. And regardless of how anyone feels about AI, it's happening. So let's just lean in. We say, this feels like a lot of work. I don't really understand this tool. I don't know how to use it fully. I don't know what it's capable of. I know that it's changing things, right? Anyone who is in this world knows that it is a part of the ecosystem that we all have to operate in. It is impacting some area of all of our lives. Now, we can choose to opt in, we can choose to understand it, but that feels like more work than knowing that there's a real cost to not doing that, right? So we're sitting here, we're saying, this is how we've always done things. I don't really understand this tool. That's going to take a lot of work. But I know, if I'm being honest with myself, I know that not engaging, not understanding, not paying attention, not sharpening my skills, not honing my mindset, I know that has a cost. I know that's going to bite me in the ass somewhere. But that still feels like a lower cost than the cost of pushing ourselves, than the cost of adapting, than the cost of being bad at something, the cost of having to ask questions, the cost of maybe feeling dumb for a second. I don't know. I don't know what this does. Can you tell me? I don't get it. How do I deploy it? What are the tools? How do I integrate this? The list goes on. That's just one example. Of course, there's literally millions of ways that can show up. But again, there's this status quo bias that keeps us from adapting. Next, and I think this builds perfectly on just what I was talking about, is the fear of uncertainty. What if it doesn't work? So what if I do this? What if I put in the work? What if I put myself out there? What if I ask the seemingly dumb questions? What if I feel vulnerable and it doesn't work? What am I going to feel then? Am I going to look stupid? Am I going to be dumb? Am I going to lose trust in myself? Or people are going to lose trust in me? The list goes on, right? And it's like the old saying goes, the biggest problems I've ever had in my life never actually happened. And I think this is a great version of that. It's this fear of uncertainty, right? The problems that we prop up, the problems that we create in our minds, what if it doesn't work? So often, none of that manifests. And if it does manifest, the consequences are so much lower than we've imagined. Again, if we focus on just adapting. So one of the places I think this manifests the most, and I see this a lot in my work, working on the leadership side of things, working with early stage companies, working with people that have large organizations that are complex structures. We see people who are resisting delegating. So this is for an early stage entrepreneur. They've kind of got the secret sauce. They've built the thing around their passion, and they're like, well, no one can do it as well as me. What if it's not done right? What if I can't trust this person? What if? So they keep it all to themselves. It keeps them from scaling, right? It sets a ceiling for what they're able to do because we can only do so much ourselves. It's also the person with a larger organization. So have a support network around them, but they still fear delegation because it turns a magnifying glass on their leadership. So say, well, if I delegate, then what am I supposed to do? Where is my strength? Where are my skills? Where's my value proposition? Right? If I get this away from me and other people start to do it and maybe they do it better than me, what does that mean about me? Am I still valuable? Right? And of course, there's the trust piece as well. But I see it happen so much where, again, we make it mean something. There's an identity attachment, like I said earlier. We make that thing mean something about us. All right, so now let's talk about what it looks like. Let's talk about a framework. So I did this in the first part as well. I gave you a framework, the 3 R's for resiliency. And now we're going to talk about a framework for training adaptability. All right, so I want you to walk away with a clear understanding of what this actually looks like. First one, mindset. First piece of the puzzle. It always starts internally. Right? The body follows the mind. Our actions follow our thoughts. So with our mindset, we're gonna take on a curiosity over certainty mindset. I'm going to say that again. Curiosity over certainty. So you might ask, well, what if I'm wrong? What else could be true? So instead of leading with failure first, so instead of asking, what if I'm wrong? We might ask, what else could be true? The other way to reframe that is when we have these internal thoughts, when we say, I can't trust anyone, I can't delegate. I'm not smart enough. Whatever's happening, we could also ask, turn the question back to us. What if I'm wrong? What if that's just not the truth? I've been wrong before. So what if I'm wrong? And then reframe, what else could be true? What could be another opportunity, another option? And that, I think, I want you to forecast that out. So if we start with the mindset piece, if we start with curiosity over certainty, we could ask ourselves, okay, well, what if I'm wrong? And then we could ask ourselves, what else could be true? What are the other things that could actually happen? Because if I'm going to go negative, if I'm going to forecast out the negative scenarios, I could just as easily, and with the same brain power, forecast out the positive scenarios. Right? Stands to reason. We always think, well, X, Y, and Z could go wrong. Well, X, Y, and Z could go right. So I think there's a reframe there, right? Again, the reframe is we're going to lead with curiosity versus certainty. So instead of saying this is definitely going to go wrong, or I'm not in a place where I can adapt, or that's not right for me, now's not the right time. What if we just get curious? What if now is the right time? What could go right? What if I'm wrong? And it actually is exactly where we need to go, right? So we're going to adjust that mindset first, curiosity over certainty. Then we're going to put some new habits in play. So we're going to practice small shifts, right? So change how you get to work. If you have to commute to work, I think this is a great way, right? This sounds really small, but I mentioned it earlier. This is the neuroplasticity part, right? It actually matters to change things up. It matters to rewire how we get things done. It matters to shift and change our expectations of how something's going to go down, right? We planned out our day, tweak one piece. You thought you were going to do one thing first, do another thing first, and work to be adaptable, right? So an easy way to do that is change your commute route. If you drive a certain way to work all the time, go through a different neighborhood. Leave 2 minutes earlier and take a different turn. Go see something you haven't seen before. Change up your route. From the physical side of things, vary your workouts. Right? Do the same thing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Switch it up. Throw something else in there. Now, you don't have to do a wholesale change. Try some different movements. I love doing this. Right? For me, Mondays is kind of the day to mess around. I have some core movements that I like to keep consistent, but also throw in what feels right. Right? Maybe do some high intensity stuff. Maybe I play around with medicine balls, heavy bags, different stuff on the bench, bands, right? Just pay attention to what feels right, what works. Work to be adaptable. Right? That way, if somebody calls you and says, hey, you want to come work out? I got this, I'm going to this new gym, or me and a friend are getting together to go for a run, or me, like, you can go with it. You're ready, you're adaptable. So introduce just like small daily novelties, small things. Again, what can you shift? If you usually do something on Tuesday, can you do it on Monday? This is, to reiterate, neuroplasticity. Right? This is rewiring your brain. It's keeping things fresh. It's important. So work to just integrate small shifts. It starts to change your habits. It doesn't have to be a wholesale change, and routine is good, right? Routine helps with consistency. So I'm not saying fly by the seat of your pants every day, change something new, just small things, right? Shift your route once a week to work. Change up your workouts a little bit. Make your phone conversations different. Whatever it is, change up a meeting structure. Do small things that just help develop the habit of adaptability. Next piece is your environment. So again, we're talking about the framework. We're going to shift your mindset first. Then we're going to make small shifts in your habits. And then we're going to look at your environment. So you have to surround yourself with diversity. So different perspectives expand your range of possible responses. Right? So where can we put ourselves? Community is a big piece of the puzzle here. I've talked about this at length I'll try not to get on a soapbox here, but community flattens the learning curve. When we are in silos, it is really, really hard to see other perspectives and access other opportunities because all we have is a mirror held to ourselves. It's really hard to be adaptable. It's hard to think outside of the box. It's hard to pivot because it's all the information's coming from us. So if you can surround yourself with people that push you to think differently, that present new ideas, present new opportunities, open up new pathways, right there is a huge piece of adaptability. So these are things like peer mastermind groups, right? I do this in my work a lot. We have the Growth Circle, which is our accelerator and mastermind program for entrepreneurs in the health and fitness space. That program exists primarily to allow other individuals to interact with people that are solving similar problems to flatten the learning curve, which accelerates the growth of the business. It's not that you can't do it. It's going to take you too long and require more effort than it's worth. Why not surround yourself with other people? And a system that presents new opportunities and a clear pathway to solve the problem. That's one example. But again, this is something that I see, and I've seen it be so impactful. And it's something that I actually just had to create because I realized it was such a critical issue that needed to be solved. So peer masterminds are part of this new environment, right? Put ourselves in a new place, do something different to be someone different. Next, talk to people outside of the discipline that you typically operate in. So if you're an accountant, talk to an engineer. How do they do their work, right? If you're a runner, talk to a cyclist. If you're a triathlete, talk to a bodybuilder. The idea here is that there's lots of perspectives. And if we change our environment, it opens up new opportunities that allow us to adapt. That's an interesting idea. That's something I could deploy. That sounds fun. That sounds exciting. Let me try that. Right? So we're going to change our environment. We're going to surround ourselves with more diversity. Next is we're going to reflect. And one of the best questions that I like to ask is, where did I resist change this week? Here's the big piece. And what did it cost me? So where did I resist change this week? And what did it cost me? This is the reflection piece. And I talked about this again in part 1 of this series, where we're talking about resiliency, but it only matters if we take some time to reflect and then deploy. If we don't take the time to recognize where the opportunities for growth are, what that pivot can produce, what the opportunities mean for us, what the friction means from a growth perspective, then none of it matters. So we can talk about the language all day, but if we don't reflect and then take some different action on the other side of that reflection, it's all for naught. Right? So I want you to ask yourself, where did I resist change this week? And what did it cost me? I like to do this on Sunday mornings. I like to take some time to reflect and map out my week. This is a great time to ask that question. You can also ask it to yourself when you're on a run or a hike or a walk or drinking your coffee or whatever way you want to deploy that. It doesn't have to be some sweeping overhaul to your routine. I want you to ask yourself, I want you to take intentional time to reflect. Ask yourself, where did I resist change this week and what did it cost me? The what did it cost me piece is key because you have to recognize that there is a cost to not adapting. I talked about that earlier. There's a cost to not adapting, and then there is a cost to adapting. I'm going to argue that the cost of not being adaptable is actually higher than our perceived cost. Right? We think that it costs more to actually make the change. I think it costs us more to stay where we're at. I think it costs us more to resist, and then we actually get too far behind, and then the cost really is high. Right? It does stack up. We don't start fresh. So here you are. You need to deploy a new system in your business. You need to work on a new skill set in your training. You don't do it. Some time goes by. Well, you continue to build on that deficit. right? Your knowledge base continues to be behind. Well, everything else is accelerating. Everyone else is adapting. You need to work on some mobility in your training. Well, everyone else around you is doing it. They're changing. So you only get further behind. The cost to catch up does get higher. So now's the time. Now's the time to adapt. Again, the question is, where did I resist change this week? What did it cost me? Be honest about the cost. It has one. There is a cost. So I want you to think about, again, this framework. I'm going to recap it. We're going to work on your mindset first. Our actions follow our thoughts. So we got to get the mindset right. We're going to lead with curiosity over certainty. Then we're going to work to integrate new habits. We're going to practice small shifts, things that just change up how we move through our days. Then we're going to work to change our environment. We're going to surround ourselves with new perspectives that are going to expand our range of possible responses. We're going to look for cross-disciplinary collaboration in whatever capacity you want to do that. And then we're going to reflect. We're going to be really honest about the cost of not adapting. So again, the key quote here, the thing that I want you to take away, is that in a world of constant change, adaptability is not a skill, it's survival. Our ability to adapt is what allows us to stay in the mix. It's what allows us to stay in the game, to continue to build the thing, to continue to push towards our full potential, to continue to build the relationships. Whatever it is, adaptability is the key. So in a world where change is the only constant, adaptability is not just a nice to have, it is the thing that keeps us around. It is survival. So a few things to reflect on I'm going to leave you with. One, I want you to think about, where are you clinging to an outdated playbook? Right? Your modus operandi, your SOPs, your handbook, your playbook, where are you holding on to that? Where are you clinging to an outdated version of your playbook? And again, I want you to ask yourself, what is it costing you to continue to cling to that outdated roadmap? Next, I want to encourage you to ask yourself, what's one pivot you could try this week? What's one thing of all the things I gave you in the 4-part framework? What's one thing you could do for your mindset? What's one thing you could do for your habit? What's one thing you could do to change up your environment? What's one thing you could do to reflect a little bit, to start to think about and integrate adaptability in a meaningful way? So, as always, I hope it's helpful. I hope you walk away feeling like you're a little bit more prepared and a little bit more capable to be a little bit more adaptable. Right? I'd love for you to share both of these episodes, right? We've had 2-part series, and I hope you found it helpful. We haven't done a lot of 2-part, multi-part series. It's something I'd want to explore doing more of. I like this format. I think it allows us to go a little deeper into the science and the framework of what these things actually look and feel like versus you sitting around for a 3-hour podcast. We break it up and make it easier to consume. So I'd love for you to share both of these episodes if you had a chance to listen to them, and specifically share them with someone navigating transitions. Some transition in their life, they're struggling to be resilient and they're struggling to adapt to the information that's presented with them. So if you know anyone who's in a transition in their life, I'd love for you to pair both of these episodes, part 1 and part 2, together and send them to them. Because as always, I want to be a value add. I want to help flatten the learning curve for you and anyone that has the opportunity to listen to Endurance Minded. As always, please rate and subscribe. I'd love to get your rating, whether it's good or bad, on your favorite podcast platform. I'd love for you to subscribe so you can be alerted and get those podcasts delivered to you every other Tuesday. That way you keep up to date. We got lots of great content coming. We continue to strive to adapt and adjust and make sure that we deliver incredible content that's valuable to you. So again, rate and subscribe so you can stay in the loop. Share this one and the last one, part 1, with a friend. And as always, I'll see you next time on Endurance Minded.